All right. You know what? This will be the first video where I pray. In the meetings, everybody in New Jersey and everybody watching, this is how we normally do the meetings. Jimmy, I said cell phones on silent. See? We have the rebellious group. Sit down, Jimmy. Put it on silent.
I'm turning it off.
I have a group of people here. I'm at our halfway house here, and I help with the halfway house. I mentioned this in the last video. So I'm going to do sporadic meetings like this. When I got back from New York, at New Jersey, I told all my friends, every now and then we're going to do meetings. So I need to mention, I didn't prepare for this meeting, but in the Bible, you're supposed to be able to, at any moment, speak, teach, preach, the Bible says, give an answer to anybody that asks you for the hope that is in you. So I'm going to teach somewhat along the lines of the other videos, and I'm going to quote, but being I didn't prepare, you can check these quotes later. I got Andy, Raquel, Jimmy, Craig, and I just met this brother. Dwayne, okay? So I'm going to talk about 10 minutes. What I'll do in this meeting, let's pray. Father, I thank you for letting us get together and do another meeting. And I pray that you bless everybody that's in the room, as well as everybody that watches these videos. We ask that you would teach us, help us to understand. The Bible says it's the Spirit that teaches us. It's the wisdom of God. So when we come to the Bible, we need your Spirit to teach us. I pray a blessing on everybody in Jesus' name. Amen. What I want to do is talk about, make sure I'm close enough here. Jimmy, can you get me a glass of water?
Absolutely. There's no.
Yeah, that's good.
There is no water. That's it.
I'll do it.
I have another jug down there.
In these other meetings, I've been on video. I've been overviewing the whole history of Scripture. This is, I started it in New Jersey, and this is maybe the 15th video for people that are following. Now, the last video I talked about how we understand prophecy in Scripture, how we understand the Book of Revelation, the visions that John had, and how the visions of John. Everybody that watched that video, you saw how mad I was in that video because I did it 4 times that day to take it. But I was doing it on purpose, teaching the book of Revelation, because I said on these teachings we're going to hit things that I feel are important for the whole church, things that Christians might have a little problems with. And the reason, those of you that watch it, you saw why I did that. Now today, when I overviewed the Bible and the whole history of the Bible, I said we were going to go back and hit certain aspects. Today, what I thought I wanted to talk about was the story. God made a promise to Abraham in Genesis 12 and 15. It says, go out of your country, go to a new nation, and I will bless you. I'll make you a great people, and through your seed will all the nations of the earth be blessed. Genesis 15, God takes him outside. Look at all the stars. That's how many children you will have. And in Genesis 15, I think it's verse 6, it says, Abraham believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. Now this is the key verse that the Apostle Paul uses in the book of Romans and Galatians to teach justification by faith, which means Abraham believed God, and God, it says in verse 6, I believe, Genesis 15, counted it to him for righteousness, meaning we're saved by faith. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him would not perish but have everlasting life. That promise to Abraham was given about 400 years before the story we're going to get to now. Now the timing of this is important, because Paul himself in Galatians 3 says God made this promise to Abraham 400 years before he gave the law to Moses. Now, if you guys don't follow, sometime I might get a little technical because this is a video. And when I shut it off, if you guys have questions, you can ask. Why is it important that God told Abraham, I'm going to bless all the world through one of your children, and he believed in it, and God justified him, as opposed to the law that came to Moses 430 years later? because Paul the Apostle in the New Testament is teaching from this that God already promised he would save us by faith and not by works. That's why this is important, okay? Now, I'm not going to explain it. I did on the other videos. The story of God giving the law to Moses we find in the book of Exodus. And real quick, I'll do this. When God made the promise to Abraham, God said, in part, it's this you find in the book of Genesis, God said, but all of these kids I'm going to give you one day, this great family, which is the nation of Israel, they're going to do 400 years in bondage. They're going to have problems. This was fulfilled when the children of Israel went into the land of Egypt. Now, I wanted to do the story of Joseph because this is an important story in the last few chapters of Genesis, but we'll do that another time. Eventually, all of this big family, this big promise that God made, they go into Egypt. And when they're in Egypt, God raises up Moses as a deliverer for the people. Now, there were 10 plagues upon Egypt. The last judgment upon Pharaoh was the firstborn of every household will die, but God gave a special way of salvation for the Jewish people. He said, the night that the death angel is going to come in, this is a judgment, the firstborn will die, but if you put the blood of a lamb upon your doorposts, and it was actually a symbol of the cross, they put the blood on the top of the door and on the two sides. Whoever has the blood on the door, the death angel will pass over. That night, the Jewish people put the blood on the door, and in the morning, everyone that didn't have the blood on the door, the firstborn died, including the heir to Pharaoh's throne, which was his son. Now, Pharaoh was obviously mad about that, pissed off, and he says, go, take all the people, leave. But that's the story. Those of you that don't read the Bible, Charlton Heston, Ten Commandments, that's what happened. They go through the Red Sea. God delivers them. That Jesus is the type of the lamb because the lamb could have no broken bones. These were requirements for this Passover lamb. No broken bones. It could not be with blemish. In the letter of Peter in the New Testament, it says Jesus was a lamb without blemish. He fulfilled it. In John chapter 19, it says they were going to break the legs of those that were crucified, Jesus and two others. It says when they came to Jesus, they did not break his legs, and it says in John, I think it's 19, so it would be fulfilled by the prophet that a bone of him would not be broken. So there was a prophecy that Christ's bones would not be broken, and they did not have to break his legs. The reason they broke the legs of people that were being crucified, crucifixion was a common form of execution in the first century. The Romans crucified a lot of criminals and a lot of people, and in the case of Christ, an innocent man. Well, when you're on the cross, crucifixion takes a while for someone to die. It's not fast, and you normally die of suffocation. And when you're hanging on the cross, you lift yourself up on the cross by pushing your legs up. So if they wanted to quickly quicken the death, they would break the legs, and you couldn't push yourself up. That's why I got technical there. But when they came to Jesus, it says he was already dead because he died with the sins of the world upon him under the judgment of God. So that's a little history there. When God delivered the people out of Egypt, the Bible says in Hebrews 11, they still had Egypt in their mind. They wanted to go back to Egypt, even though God saved them and did a great work with them. And when they got into the wilderness, it should have only took a few days for them to get to the promised land. We read about the obtaining of the promised land in the book of Joshua, which I'm going to do someday. But it took them 40 years to get there, because if you look at the landscape, they went in a circle 40 years. They just wandered in circles because they were disobedient. They complained, they grumbled. One of the stories, I'm not going to be able to get to the Ark of the Covenant, which I wanted to teach. One of the stories was they complained that they didn't have food. When some of the meetings I did, I always find it funny that certain things stick with the guys. One of the homeless guys in the bluff, Bobby, who's upset that I'm not doing the meeting, I did a meeting about manna. They complained about food. Oh, we don't have any food. We wish we were back in Egypt. You know, we had all this stuff. Now, I'm at the halfway house, so I'm going to apply it. It's like if you're doing math or you're doing something, whatever. I'm still sober, 23 months now. Sometimes when people get clean, believe it or not, they think, man, you know, when I was using, you know, this is it. That's how the enemy works. Like, you know, I had it better. Are you kidding me? It wasn't better when you were using. It wasn't better when you were in bondage. But the children of Israel, when God saved them out of bondage, Egypt is bondage. You can apply it to sin in our lives. They complained. They said, you know what? We had all that good food back in Egypt. And so Moses had a temper problem. You've seen me on these videos have a temper problem. Not on this one today, God willing. Unless Andy wants to start sometimes. But God
He's
used
just fucking
people,
with you.
God used, oh, you just cursed on my video. Hey, no, I've done it too. Oh, we're
I got it.
videotaping.
I got it.
Come on in.
I got it.
I was gonna ask you,
Okay, that's fine. This happens in a lot of. They complained. Let's do this one, manna. Okay, they complained that God didn't give them food, but we wanted all the good food, and so God gave them manna. Now, manna is a type of food that the Bible refers to it later on as God gave them angel food. Manna was like a little wafer in the morning. When you got up in the morning, it says the dew lifted off the ground. I didn't study for any of this. And they found a little wafer on the ground, like a tortilla, or New York friends, like a little biscuit on the ground. And manna means, what is it? I guess I'll do something here. I'll teach this. It means, the word manna means, what is it? Okay? And later, Jesus in John chapter 6, he's debating with the religious people. And later, Jesus says, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven. They ate that bread. Your fathers ate that bread and are dead. He says, I'm the true bread that came down from heaven. So why is the definition of manna important? The Bible says in the Gospel of John, which I just quoted, chapter 6, it says, he was in the world, and the world was made by him, but the world knew him not. He's really referring to his Jewish brothers who did not recognize him. So what does that mean? Manna means the bread of life. What is it? And so in a sense, it was a picture that Jesus, the bread of life, they would not know who he was. And they didn't until this day. The Jewish people don't really recognize Jesus as the Messiah. So there was a lot of significance to the manna. But Bobby, one of the homeless guys, when I taught this, God said, when you get the manna every morning, we got about 3 more minutes. When you get the manna every morning, just take enough for you. And if you take too much, it says it will breed worms. It bred worms, or basically got maggots in it. So if you were stingy or you wanted to hoard it, it rotted. But on the 6th day, you could take enough manna for 2 days, because on the 7th day, the Sabbath, they were not allowed to collect any. And so it worked out well. And Bobby always remembered out of this, because he remembered. He kept telling me, yeah, John, you know, I've been too selfish and I'm trying to collect more than, and so it stuck with him. That was the story of the manna. We'll do one more before I end this one. I want to do the Ark of the Covenant, which is simply a box that the 10 Commandments, I know, but I can't go too long in the videos. I'll do another one, and then I'll quote Corinthians, Paul, and that'll be it. So the manna was a type of Christ. In John 6, that's the debate going on, and Jesus says, I'm the true bread that comes down from heaven that gives his life into the world. In the other video, I quoted Revelation 5, thou art worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof, for you were slain, and you have redeemed us unto God by your blood. Out of every nation, kindred, tribe, and tongue, and you have made us kings and priests unto God and your Father, and we will reign upon the earth. He was worthy to open the scroll in the hand of him on the throne, Revelation 5, because he was slain. So he gets authority, Christ, because of his death, burial, and resurrection. He's at the right hand of God. We get authority when we go through death experiences, struggles. It's hot in here, Andy. Now, one more, and we're going to be done. They also had no water at one point in this wilderness journey. And God tells Moses, strike the rock, and out of the rock water will come. Now, there was more I can do this here, but I can't, don't have enough time. But he does hit the rock, water comes out of the rock, and that's also a type of Christ. So all of these stories, this is all in the book of Exodus. I'm going to quote Paul in Corinthians, I think it's Corinthians 10. Listen to this, listen to this. The Apostle Paul says, all of our forefathers, they drank of that spiritual rock that was Christ. Paul says this in Corinthians. And they ate of the bread, the meat. They all had that spiritual water and that spiritual meat. Now look at how Paul, the apostle who was the smartest, he was a Pharisee out of all the teachers, he wrote the most letters in the New Testament. In all of this, he's seeing Christ. He's seeing all of these stories. Water out of the rock. Jesus is the rock of our salvation. All of these stories, this is why I'm doing on these teachings today, because I'm in a little different environment. I didn't go as much as I'm doing on the other videos. But that's what we see. We see Christ. He's in the manna, he's in the rock, and when I teach the Ark of the Covenant, which is a box that the Ten Commandments went into, I'm going to do this real quick. When Moses went up to get the commandments, before he even came down, they already broke them because the people were sinning. So out of anger, now Moses has an anger problem. A couple of times I'm going to teach this in the future. He breaks them. Now he has to go get another, he's got to get another set. What is that a symbol of? The second covenant, okay? I taught about the two trees in the garden. You guys didn't hear that, but the two trees in the garden were tied to two covenants, the law and grace. The second set of tablets is also, in my mind, an image of the second covenant. Everything looked forward to the time of Christ, to the new covenant. And they put those second set of tablets, the second covenant, it's a symbol of, into a box called the Ark. And in that box, in that Ark, there's also a lot of symbols here, but it's like a type of Christ. And the Ten Commandments was the perfect character of God that no man could ever live up to. So, why did it have to go into a box about the size of this little table I'm on? Because in the box, they had a lid. The lid was called the mercy seat. And the mercy seat, the high priest, once a year, would take the blood and put it on that mercy seat. Okay, that was the atonement sacrifice. And this was a picture that God's holy character in a box, in a fleshly thing. That whole tabernacle system with skins and things like that, it was a type of a lot of things, but it's also a type of Christ, that Christ, the incarnation, God in us. So in that box, God had the cover, the mercy seat, and the blood. Oh, now God can be with us because the blood and the mercy's there. God can be with us, we can be with God. That was a picture of that. And one time that Ark of the Covenant stolen. Those of you that ever watched the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's the Ark. That's what it's talking about. People think the Ark, Noah's Ark. That's the box. One time the Ark was stolen, the Philistines got it, and they lifted up the lid, and they all got wiped out. King James says like 100-something thousand people got wiped out, and some scholars say no, it's not that many. People got wiped out, and in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, it pictures this ark as a nuclear device. If you take the lid off, why did everybody get wiped out? Okay? Because if you take the mercy seat off, if you take the cover off, God's holy character and our sinful nature cannot exist. They cannot coexist without the cross. The word for the mercy seat, the actual word, is used, I think it's in 1 John, but it's used a couple of times in the New Testament. It's called propitiation, okay? Meaning that mercy seat, that lid on the box was a type of the cross. The propitiation is one of the words that defines the sacrifice of Jesus. So God was saying, I can be with you, you can live with me, but it's only through the cross. Man can only have a relationship with God through the cross. So when those Philistines, I think it was, when they took the lid off, they got wiped out because it was like saying, no mercy. And without the cross, there's no mercy. And that's what those movies, go watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, they talk about it like, that's what happened. If you approach God, this is the distinction between Christianity and other religions. And those of you know I'm pretty merciful to the other religions. I'm not real harsh. But all other religions are based upon the law, meaning I got to do my best to please God, which is impossible because we're all with sin. Christianity, salvation is a gift. It's grace. The blood of Jesus, the mercy seat, okay? That's the image we get out of this. In the next video, hopefully I'm going to do a little bit more about that. Now, I covered a lot. When I shut this off, I'm going to let everybody talk a little bit, but I hope you get it. That's you see Jesus in the manna, you see Jesus in the rock, and Paul, I think it was Corinthians 10, I think it's 1 Corinthians 10, he says, they all drank of that spiritual rock that was Christ, they all ate of that spiritual meat. So all of these images that I'm going to cover in these other videos are all pointing to Christ. Now, this is everybody in the meeting today. This was totally, I didn't plan on being here today. That's Rocky. That's Andy. You've seen him in the other meeting. He's available for a Christian woman that would like to.
Oh my.
That's Jimmy D. Well, Jimmy D. He's always available. That's Craig. And was it Dwayne?
Charlton Heston.
Okay, that's Charlton Heston there. I'm going to talk to Dwayne in a minute. Okay, God bless you guys in New Jersey and anywhere else. And you see how off the cuff these things are.